Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. We're glad to welcome you to our today's webinar. A few words regarding the event organization. The webinar will be recorded and then posted on our video portal and YouTube channel. You may ask all your questions in the QA field. Also, at the end of the webinar, you will have an opportunity to take part in a short quiz and get valuable prizes. Our today's speaker is Lucas Goncalves, and the topic of his webinar is SAP Integration, Use Cases and Target Architectures. I give the floor to our speaker.
Thank you. Be welcome again. This is the third sessions that we have. Thank you a lot to be with us. Today, the topic that we are bringing is the use case and target architecture. So basically, I will share some requirements that I have received in previous projects or in the previous years, and how we can attend those use cases with some ideas, with some target architectures, using or trying to maximize the SAP solutions that we saw in previous sessions. About me, right? So my name is Lucas. I work with SAP for almost 15 years, and always focus in this area of integration, working as a solution or enterprise architect, mainly supporting digital transformations in this area. For today, right? So we will talk about the session plan, right? So this is the last session for now, but we will have strong plans to continue in the future. We will have a small recap about the last sessions that we had, and we will bring main three challenges, right? So the first one more focus on process integration, the second one for event integration or event-driven architecture, event stream, and the last one for data integration, right? The last topic, we have a gifts for you today. So draw 3 amazing books. So, everyone can start to read and, be more updated on those topics. Starting, right? So we started this journey with the overview of SAP integration tools, right? Where we delivered the integration learning journey. So, as usual, comment or send your questions about the material that we are sharing with you. Then last Friday, we had a session about how to handle integrations in a day-to-day, mainly focused on the ISAM. So we discussed it on how to apply the ISAM and how to improve the usability of the ISAM in your company. And for today, we will be focused on to close this gate where we understand the capabilities, we understand how to apply, and now let's apply in real case. But this is not the end of the session. We will draw 3 books. But this is not the end, right? So we are already talking internally about new sessions. So it's really important that you share on the chat, on the questions, the next sessions that we are interested in. I already bring, as usual, the topics that come to my mind. For example, the migration from PO to SCI, or maybe, how to use the API management to really build a self-service strategy. Neuro Edge, but I also received some questions, for example, for Data Hub or integration with SAP Commerce and all of that. So, put on the chat all topics that you want to see in future sessions about integration, and I will be more than happy to schedule those sessions with you. About the books, right? So in the end of this session, we will draw 3 books, right? So the first one will be the Integration Suite, right? So it's an amazing book that resume in details, right? So that give like a really specific understanding about this technology in details, the capabilities, configurations. The other one, it's the enterprise messaging. So this book, was created when the SAP called the Event Mesh has the enterprise messaging, but you know, it's the same thing. So basically, it's the event broker from SAP, how to configure standard and custom events. And the third one, it's for me, it's one of my favorite books. It's the domain driving. So, you know, it's a key factor that you need to understand if you want to work with integration, not only for SAP, but, you know, in the agnostic technology point of view. As usual, please, you know, write your questions on the Q&A, even that it's not possible to answer everything now. You know, offline, I always answer all questions that come to us. Starting then by a small recap, right? So in the first session, right, so about the overview of the SAP integration, we go deep in each one of the tools that are part of the integration suite. And now we understand, or at least I hope that you understand, the capability of each one of those tools. If not, if you still have questions based on the chat, Lucas, I'm not aware of what is event mesh or what is cloud integration, and I will be more than happy to share with you more documents or even have like a separated session to talk about each one of those tools. After that, last Friday, we talked about the ISAM, the Integration Solution Advisory methodology, that it's basically a methodology that the SAP brings to support you in the enterprise level to map your integration domains, integration styles, and use case patterns to then define what is the best blueprint and middle tool to be implemented in each case of in each business requirement that you can receive. So, you know, one of the main focus of the ISAM will be to improve the integration maturity level, right? So to put you in a level where you can really practice the empowerment with the business users. And also, you know, we walk in the flow to define the technologies for each one of the demands. So integration domains, where your applications is hosted, then integration styles and use case patterns, you know, which type of integration it's required to fulfill your requirement. And then in the end, the technology mapping to really define the low level, which tools that you can use to fulfill this requirement. And always important, right? So here we are talking about SAP, but the methodology that we are presenting, it's completely agnostic. So if in your company use Mulisoft, Informatica, all of those tools, you know, any of non-SAP or SAP tools can compose this methodology. I hope that those topics was clear. It was a lot of things during those last two sessions, but if you still have questions, you know, raise, and you know, I love to talk about those topics. So for me, it's even nice when you send questions to me. Jumping for the topic, right? So the first topic that we will talk today, it's the process integration, right? So this is probably the most common pattern that you face in your company. Why, right? So the first point is what is process integration, and mainly how to differentiate from data integration, right? So when we talk about process integration, we are basically talking about a chain distributed business process in hybrid landscape. What that means, right? So it's a transactional integrity process-centric integration flows to attend your business process in terms of integration. Giving an example, and we will have a lot of other examples, but you have a business process that create an invoice, and you need to integrate this unique invoice across multiple applications. This is a process integration. In another hand, we will talk in the details, but data integration is when we are talking about a high volume of data So we are talking about ETL, stream data processing, tables, storage, it's more a robust integration. We have the classic example for batch integration, but it's not resumed on this type of pattern. But returning for process integration, the main focus is A to A, application to application, business to business, business to governance, and master data integration, right? So business partner has changed how to integrate this business partner across different platforms. And going deep to the process integration, the main focus for today will be the cloud integration, right? That it's one tool that is more focused to attend this pattern, but can be combined with different tools inside of the integration suite to really provide a robust solution to attend your requirement. Then let's jump to the first requirement, right? So those are real requirements that I faced in my life. And the idea is that we have like an open discussion here where I share my experience, the way that I handle those requirements and what we should to do. So for the first one, right? So the requirement or the high level requirement is to integrate the S/4HANA with the SAP Commerce Cloud. Previously, the SAP called Hybris, and now they rebrand for the SAP Commerce Cloud, mainly for the new versions. And the data object, it's order cancellations, right? So every time that we have order cancellations from S4, then this is integrated to the Hybris. Also, we have the main characteristics for this integration, right? So it's not applicable an API pattern. It's possible to use, or we can check a prepackaged content, and also it requires some structure mappings, value mappings, routing, splitting, protocol mediations, technical exceptions, error handling, and also different quality of services. And then we are suggesting for this point, or for this requirement, the usability of the SAP Cloud integration, but we cannot forget, right? So this is only the high-level requirement. So as we saw in the last session, I always suggest, to run this interface assessment to really understand the requirement that it's coming, to understand, for example, security specifications, the frequency of this integration, the volumetry, if it is expected asynchronous or asynchronous, a pull or push, if the business already have some out-of-box scenarios that can be suggested. And this is a really valid point, because when we talk about empowerment or empowerment of the user, then it's mainly the capability. It's one of the capabilities of this area. It's to empower the user team to discover integrations by themselves. Also, if it's necessary message transformation or if it's an API opportunity. And based on that, we run the process, right? So we define the styles and use case, we make a cross evolution, and then we have the assessment result. In this case, what was the result in terms based on this requirement, right? So checking the out of box, the API Business Hub, we can see that the SAP already offer an out of box scenario exactly for this type of scenario, right? So what is the out of box scenario? Are tools that the SAP already offer, right, from SAP customers to be implemented without extra fees, right? So it's basically, you download, you configure, and then you apply in your environment. And then, all these steps related to mapping, errors, or, post actions are already handled by this integration scenario. Let's jump then, maybe this was too much easy because the SAP already offer, and we always need to keep in mind to check every time that we receive a requirement if the SAP already offers some pre-content to be implemented. And this was the case for the SAP to SAP. So usually when you have SAP to SAP integrations, so we are talking S4, Concur, Commerce Cloud, Field Glass, all those SAP technologies, it's really valid to take a look in the API Business Hub to check if the SAP is already offering something to be used. Let's then jump for the second requirement, right? So basically, the requirement is to integrate the S/4HANA with the German government, basically the German tax office, right? So we have the same main characteristics. It's not something that can be applied for APIs, and we follow the same path, right? So the SAP also offer an out-of-box scenario to handle this type of scenario, and not only for Germany, right? So we have Germany, we have India, we have Italy, we have Portugal, Spain, and many other countries where the SAP already offer out-of-box scenarios to handle this type of communications with the government. The name of the solution is e-document, right? So every time that you need to talk with some of those governments, check the API Business Hub, because often the SAP can offer you some important out-of-box scenarios. Maybe it was too easy so far. We are developers. Configuration, it's nice, save time, but let's jump maybe for something a little bit more complex and more, hard to be handled. So here, basically, you're talking about B2B, right? So the requirement is to integrate the S/4HANA with external partners, right? And one of the main requirements is to not use a EDI broker. What I mean with EDI broker, usually companies have external partners that handle those B2B integrations. So basically, the SAP send this message to those partners, and those partners are responsible to onboard those external business partners, and then, to translate, to build the mapping, and to deliver this message to those external business partners. But the SAP also brings a suggestion on how to handle this, saving money, because, usually those external EDI brokers are quite expensive, and, to using a standard configuration inclusive to handle complex structure mappings. So eDefects, X12, and also B2B protocols. So if you need to establish integration via AS2 OFTP. So the suggestion, it's always, go deep in the process of the assessment to have the proper requirement definition, but jumping for a possible solution, right? So we can have via integration suite. So basically, we are talking that the SAP S/4HANA will send a IDOC, for example, for invoice, and then we have the SAP Cloud Platform Integration receive as a IDOC adapter running the mapping. And then here it's important to highlight that multiple technologies inside of the SAP integration suite can empower the solution. For example, the integration advisory, that it's a tool mainly focused to support those B2B integrations. And then, inside of the cloud integration, you can transform this message to eDefect, and then you can have the D96A that it's the required message type from the partner, and then send it to the external business partner. Has the cloud platform integration, it's already on the public cloud, right? So it's already an integration platform, has a service. Even this part of security can be more easily implemented because it's a platform that it's already exposed to the internet. But look, I want more, right? So I want to have other type of uh, communication channels or B2B channels with those business partners. So instead of be always a push mechanism, I also want to give the possibility to have, for example, an invoice update or an order change where the business partner come to us and, check what is the status of the order. In this case, we can also open an API approach where, we have the S/4HANA, we have the API management, and then, in this case, via REST protocol, we can enable the business partner to check many different type of documents, open different channels of B2B. In both options, right? So I imagine that many questions can popping up, but the main objective is to show that the SAP can offer solutions to handle those type of B2B integrations without the constantly necessity to have an external EDI broker. So if you have this scenario, it's valid to have some discussions with your architecture team, because I already faced situations where we was expending a huge amount of money with those EDI brokers, and bringing this capability in the house save us a lot of time in a long journey. I hope that is clear, but again, as usual, I'm really repetitive. My salary is paid by questions. So, raise your questions here. It's always amazing when you are in contact with us. In the end, you can have like a beautiful blueprint, right? To have all this strategy validated with the different stakeholders, and to show, the overview of your solution or how you are planning to implement it in a nice way. This type of blueprint or this template of blueprint, it's something that already come in the ISAM. So it's something that it's out of box. So it's just about to pick up it and customize as you want. Let's then jump to a more complex topic, right? Process integration sometimes are too simple to be implemented, are already a well-known type of platform or pattern, integration pattern. So jumping for event, that it's something that it's really popping up. So let's take a look, right? So before to jump, what is event-driven architecture or even stream architecture, right? So basically, we are talking that any publisher, right? So when we talk about event stream, we try to be more fancy in terms of, terms. So it's not a sender. So we are talking about publishers. And then, different services can be published. So invoice, business partners. And then, we have a event broker that it's basically, an event bus. In the middle, we have the broker to organize the topics. And on the other hand, we have the subscribers that are systems that want to receive those events. So jumping for a more technical topic, let's take a look in the requirement that we have, right? So for this requirement, the business is saying that the business partner data need to be integrated for numerous applications in real time. So every time that I change, that I manipulate some business partner, this is need to be integrated via, for a different number of subscribers. Also, all applications need to be up to date at the same time. So the point-to-point integration, it's not valid for this case because we always have some delay or latency in those type of integrations across multiple applications. And to make everything more complex, new applications will be occurring in the future that also need to receive this information, right? So today we have a pipeline with 5 applications that need to receive, but in the future, new applications can come to the picture. In terms of main characteristics for this requirement, right? So we are talking about event-based and driven integration. And as we change the patterns, so instead of say a sender and receiver, we are talking about publisher and subscriber. And also another really important point, it's a completely decoupled solution, right? So the senders don't need to know what are the receivers, and the receivers don't need to know what are the senders. The most important for this architecture, it's the topic, you know, the data, the relevant information that you are streaming around of your landscape. And usually, you know, this pattern it's asynchronous, right? So asynchronous, it's when you send a message, but you don't wait till the subscriber or the receiver process this message. It's the classic fire and forget. In terms of possible technologies involved, you know, we are bringing the event mesh, we are bringing the cloud integration, the API management, and why not? Let's make everything more confused. Let's put Kafka inside of this picture, you know, to bring some challenge to us. Usually, you know, map your process, follow the ISAM. It's a really important tool to really understand and have a cross validation in terms of solutions that you're applying. Good. Let's then jump, you know, in the ISAM process, right? So we understand that in terms of this requirement, we are talking about an event-based integration, right? So it's a cross use case. And then, you know, we have the event-based integration focus on decoupling applications with publisher and subscriber, talking with an event broker. After to have this mapped, we have the mapping of technologies. So we already know the integrations, already mapped the use case patterns, and then we can jump for the integration technologies, where we selected which tools will be able to handle this requirement. And, you know, going a little bit deep, so it's possible to identify that the SAP already offer a standard event for business partner change and business partner created. So today the SAP offer almost 300 standard events to be used. So, you know, every time that you talk about events, take a look. But there is one tricky on that, right? So if you take a look in the message that the SAP is triggering by those events, you can see the payload. And inside of the payload, you can see that only the ID of the business partner is sent, right? We usually call it light event. What I mean, so you don't have the full payload of the business partner. You don't have the information on what has been changed. You only have the ID saying that the business partner 001 has been changed. How to handle this situation, right? So basically I bring 2 options, right? So the option A, you have the S/4HANA as a publisher, and you can have the system A, the system B, system C, and any future systems that want to receive this message. inside of SAP, how does this work? And again, you know, it's always important to highlight that here we are talking about a standard configuration, right? So every time that a business partner change, this business partner is related to an event topic. This event topic will be related to a one specific distribution channel, and you made the configuration to define which RFC and which protocol will be used to send this data. Have the event mesh. Inside of the event mesh, we have topics. In this case, business partner changed and business partner created. You have your queues, and here we have important point, right? Usually the SAP has to build your queues by system that are subscribed, right? So you have different queues to orchestrate the distribution of your topics. And in the end, you have the webhook. So if you have access to the event mesh, you see that it's a really simple configuration. There is no like a secrets. It's basically, you know, 2 or 3 screens where you can make all the necessary configurations. And how would be the process, right? So every time that the business partner 001, remember that only the ID of the business partner is exchanged. This come to a specific topic that you will create. This topic then it's split in multiple queues because you defined that the system A and the system B need to receive this event. And then we have the option where the webhook will pick up those messages and send the ID of this change for this system A and the system B. And here we start the challenge, right? So Lucas, what my system A and my system B will do with this event, right? Because in the end, if the business partner was changed, I need to receive the payload with the information about what was changed to update my system. Then we have different options, right? So the option A will be the system B, for example, via API management, can consume this data, right? So you send the business partner ID and you receive the payload back. But then you have a classic challenge, right? So Lucas, my system B, it's don't have capabilities or integration capabilities. My system B, it's a completely SaaS solution, so it's not possible for my system to call APIs. You know, I don't have this functionality. So based on that, we can have other options, right? So for the option B, for example, we have the S/4HANA, we have the same systems receiving the message, and then following the same standard approach, right? We can have the event mesh with the same components, but when the S/4HANA send the business partner change, this is organized in a specific queue, and then the webhook will pick up those topics from the queues, and instead of send it to directly to the system A or system B, you can have, for example, the cloud integration, where you have the webhook sending this message to a specific iFlow. This iFlow will be responsible to pick up or to consume this data from the S/4HANA, to pick up the payload, and then to integrate this message with the system A and the system B already with the payload. Lucas, it's too much complex, right? So it's too much complex, but maybe we can make even more complex, right? So to make this really, really beautiful, then instead of have a directly connection from cloud integration to S4, you can have in the middle the API management to support you in this pull process. Why I would do that, you know? So we already have 3 technical components to handle a requirement. Because maybe in the future we can receive a requirement, right, that the system D, a completely different system, need to have an API to consume data from business partner in a pull process. So in one shot, you can solve your pain that you have now and also future pains. You can increase your integration capability, your integration catalog with more functionalities that can be reused for the future. Even on that, Lucas, for me, it's too much complex, right? So it doesn't make sense for me to have event mesh, cloud integration, and API management. There are too many failures points or too many, error handling or monitoring steps. And I understand and agree with you. So the SAP having the roadmap, the capability to work with hard events, right? So instead of send only the business partner ID, it's already send the full payload and also highlighting what has been changed, right? So which information? So if the address of the business partner has been changed, then, inside of the event mesh, you can have a logic, for example, to define, so the system A are not interested to receive address change because the system A, it's only responsible for order or I don't know, for MDG. So in this case, the business partner relevant information will be the I don't know, the invoice address. So, different rules can be applied to determine different systems that you receive. Makes sense, guys? So this is the solution that the SAP brings today to combine those tools to provide a full event-driven architecture. But we have, the SAP offer a hard roadmap for a short future where those capabilities will be enhanced. Easy yet, right? So let's maybe jump for a more complex scenario, a decentralized event broker. Then we are starting to get crazy with those ideas. But, let's try to exercise a little bit it. So in this scenario, we have the S/4HANA has one publisher. We have the systems that want to receive those messages, but we also have the system A, a non-SAP system that also have the capability to create and change this partner. So in this case, we have two different publishers for the same topic. How to handle this type of situation? So we can have the event mesh with the process that we already saw in the previous slides. We can have the cloud integration to support us in the lookup to fetch the data. And we can also have, for example, the Apache Kafka has an event broker to support us, has a centralized event broker. So in this picture, the event mesh will play a role of event broker only for SAP events, mainly to empower your solutions for standard configurations, but you can have Kafka has a centralized event broker in the enterprise point of view. How to handle that? So we have again the same standard configuration. This message will be sent to the event mesh. We'll pick up the data. We'll have the lookup via cloud integration, and then you send to the Kafka already the event with the ID and with the payload. In parallel, we can also have the system A publishing the topics that can be even related to the same business partner to your centralized event broker. Lucas, it's possible for, and then, the Kafka, it's responsible, to distribute those events or to stream those events between different applications. Lucas, if I don't want to use Kafka, can my event mesh also handle events from non-SAP systems? Yes, right. So you can also have those events being centralized, those non-SAP events being centralized to the event mesh. But then in some cases, you know, you can have this problem with light or hard events that, you know, can be a challenge to you. And also in many companies, you know, you see more and more the 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 intention to use the Kafka as the main event broker. So these architectures somehow try to combine the both worlds to take the best. But we need to highlight this solution brings a high level of ownership, right? So we have multiple platforms that need to be maintained, licensed, teams, you know, support. So it's those three options need to be really be validated against, you know, the requirement that you have in your business case. Guys, questions? I imagine that this topic, it's a quite confused, right? Everything's new, or at least for the SAP universe, this event topic, it's a quite challenge. It's something that are being created or are being input in this the SAP universe have just some months or years. So there is a lot of improvement areas, and as usual, ping your questions and I will be more than happy to support you. In the end, you know, we can have, you know, a beautiful blueprint to have this validation with multiple partners or internal or external teams, inclusive to highlight the positions of your environment in terms of landscape, right? So if we have, for example, those events coming from a cloud application, but need to be terminated between cloud subscribers and on-premise subscribers, how to handle that. So, you know, it's also possible to have this different approach, mainly using the cloud integration to handle those different patterns, and with the presence of a reverse proxy to ensure that your on-premise environment it's not exposed to the internet. Makes sense, guys? How far we are going or how crazy are being the solutions that we are proposing? You know, again, you know, this topic of events it's a quite new in the SAP community. So it's really nice that we exchange experience. At least I'm working now with guys that work with events, have many years, and I'm learning a lot about this new universe, mainly using Kafka, non-SAP technology. So at least are being a really nice discovery from my end. Then, you know, based on this blueprint, I also like to highlight this info sheet, right? That, you know, describe the blueprint that we have, the involved SAP technologies, when to apply, you know, in which type of case, how to apply, and some examples. Why it's important to have it? Because then, you know, parallel projects that run in the enterprise, imagine that your company have 4, 5, 10, 20 projects running in parallel, how to orchestrate those projects to follow the same pattern or the same strategy. So this info sheet, you know, it's this blueprint together with this info sheet can guide different teams, different architects to a common solution. Good. So jumping for the next topic that we have, data integration, right? So this is always a pain, at least, you know, in my past, this was always a pain because usually when you come to the SAP world, data integration, it's splitted, right? So usually we have one team focus on PI, PO, and a completely different team focus on data integration. And now that we are going more and more deep in this enterprise integration platform, it's really nice that if you are aiming to become a integration architect, solution architect, you need to keep updated on those type of patterns as well, because demands will come and you need to be able to support your business. So jumping now for the data integration, right? So we are talking about pipeline and orchestrating data in hybrid environment. We are talking about data integration, right? So ETL, massive volume of data, data-centric flow, data focus, right? So here we are talking about tables, views, storage, batch. It's a high volume of data that need to be orchestrated between multiple sources. Also, it's important to understand that basically we have 4 steps for that integration. We have the access, we have to prepare, we have the process, and we have the delivery of this data, right? So access, it's where you extract this data, you can prepare this data, for data cleaning, or all those steps. You can process this message, for example, with pipelining, orchestration, and then you deliver this message, this data integration to the target system. Look in an example of a requirement that we will try to suggest some solutions. This is also a situation that I saw in my past, right? That I'm trying to bring the solution that was proposed at this time. So basically, we are talking about high volume of master data that need, to be synchronized between the S/4HANA and the central finance. The other requirement, those systems need to really be integrated with a high integration credibility, right? Less challenge, because the life was already too much easy. So the central finance, it's a global instance, and the S/4HANA are regional instance. So let's imagine a situation that you are working in a huge company present in, I don't know, 10 different countries, and each country have their own S/4HANA, but then you have one global central finance, mainly, to orchestrate all the finance documents. How to do that, So we have the big data use case, we have a data orchestration and synchronization, and we have a data source and data targets. The SAP also bring, different tools that can be used. For example, the data service, if you're talking about more on-premise or, a specific case, we have the SLT, Landscape Transformation Replication. That, in my case, it's the tool that I suggest for this type of situation. And the last one, it's the data intelligence. I will not lie to you. I data intelligence yet. So my main focus was always to propose solutions using the SAP landscape transformation. So again, be focused on the process, don't lose the requirements, because you can be driving your solution to the wrong direction. So we have again the mapping in terms of the ISAM. This is a data orchestration. There is always a challenge for data integration if this will be a data replication or data integration. So, really build your use case patterns based on your company culture that is the best path to proceed. Because could also be a data replication depending of the case that you have. Then again, map the integration styles, map the use case patterns and the technology, and then we jump for the scenario. So let's say that you have one S/4HANA in Germany, another one in Italy, another one in Brazil, but in Brazil, they still use the SAP ERP, so the migration from S4 was not applied yet, so they are building this template, and then, different systems or different countries will also join in this journey. On top, we have the S/4HANA Central Finance has a global instance. To be more complex, right? So we have a different go live dates, right? So Germany will join this template on 2021. Italy will join in 2022. Brazil have no idea when we'll join. It's a project that it's being planned, and we have a lot of other countries that will join in the next years. How to handle this type of situation? So the suggestion is to use the SAP SLT, right? And there is a trick here. So the regional instance can synchronize data via SLT, and then this SLT will synchronize with the central finance. Doesn't matter if you are talking about S4 or ERP, this strategy can hold. But there is an important point, right? So data credibility, right? So the SLT, it's a really, really powerful solution. But in my previous experience, I had some experience that when we try to have too many SAP instances being synchronized by only one instance of SLT, you can face some performance issues or even, some downtimes that are not expected. So what I suggest, if you have a high number of regional instances that you want to integrate, then you should start to think to have a multiple SLT instance exactly to support this type of solution. Lucas, where you take this idea, from where come this idea? This is a SAP best practice, right? So it's something that I'm creating from my mind. It's something that the SAP suggests. So the most part of this integration can be handled by standard functionalities. So as usual, I always highlight that, before to jump in a completely custom solution, try, to check what the SAP offer has a standard, because, usually the SAP offer a lot of things in line of this. What do you think so far, guys? Do you think I'm able to achieve and to explain those solutions that everyone can understand? If I'm being too much technical, or if I should be more technical, put in the questions, and we can maybe have a hands-on session when we jump in those configurations and build a small POC to really prove, to see this integration happening. Now, guys, it's the moment for the gift, right? So we are really happy with those 3 sessions, and because of this, we are planning to have this drawing. So Hannah, should I continue from here? But mainly, you need to access the website menti.com. You should use this code 26398665, or you can read the QR code below. Then it's important, right? So use informations to register in this site that makes sense, right? Because I need to find you to really order those books in your name, right? So put something that can be identified. Now we will start, right? So question number 1, there are 5 questions that you need to answer. to have, you know, the best approach or, you know, the best score to receive those books. Okay, let's join, guys. We will start in a couple of minutes. We already have 30 persons inside of this session, this draw port. Okay, maybe more. 3 minutes. Let's go, guys. Let's join. Those are nice books. You know, it would be nice to have those books. Maybe I will put my name to be part of those draw. Okay, maybe 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's start. Okay. First question, we have 25 seconds for each question, right? So what is the name of the first session that we had for integration tips and tricks? Option A, it's all about Java, overview of SAP integration, ABC of Mulisoft, or how to become a SAP integrator. This is a hard one, I think, no? 3, 2, 1. Time's up. Good. We have 9 guys on the place. Question number 2. How many years I have experience working with SAP? So I'm a fresh guy. I just started. I have 5 years. I have 15 years, or I never worked at all. I'm just lying here about fancy terms. Okay. A lot of guys made it. Good, good. Will be tight. So how fast you answer, the biggest will be your score. Question number 3. What is hidden in this picture? This is the hard one. So it's hidden S/4HANA, SAP GRC, SAP Integration Bus, or SAP Integration Suite. So what was delivered by SAP around of 2015? 3, 2, 1. Okay, 11. Oh, nice, nice, nice. So maybe we are being easy. Board rule. We have a Hakesh. Oh my God, Hakesh, you take the books. Prelek, PY. You will be a hard guy to find, my friend. Amazing. Question number 4. What does means ISAM, or what does it stand for? It's an intelligent solution architecture, innovative service approach, integration solution advisor, or ISAM means I'm a super architect. I like this one. We should have a term for that. Let's see. I don't know who answered I'm a super architect, but it was a really good thought. Last question, guys. Last question. So what platform is hidden on the picture, right? So we saw this many times. So it's hidden SAP Business Technology Platform, SAP S/4HANA Platform, SAP Business Intelligence Platform, or Mulisoft. What is hidden in this picture? Good, nice. So let's receive the winners. Who was the best? So, Hakesh, my friend, you got it. Hakesh, my friend. Okay, nice. You received the book. Amazing, amazing. Guys, the unique point, the second one, PY, guy, could you please identify yourself to be able to send those books to you? You know, only with PY will be hard to identify you. Maybe you can write in the questions, you know, your name, send me your name by message, and I will be happy to share with you my address, those books. But Hakesh, congratulations, you know. I will then order those books to you, and then let me share again, because in this moment we only have some answers and questions. Let me share again. Good. Let me open here. So let's take a look on the questions. How obtain the access to those books? Yeah, you need to win the prize. You know, it's not so easy. How long we could use IDOC RFC communications with S/4HANA API? It's the only future. Nice question, right? So how usually I organize this point, inclusive, I'm working exactly on that to map the adapters and the pros and cons for each one. So let's start by the most challenge, right? So RFC. RFC, it's a pattern that was most usually in the past for SAP to SAP, but brings, you know, some challenge in terms of monitoring, usability, error handling. So it's really not something that I suggest, or that, you know, I suggest to use on my projects. IDOCs, right? So what is the main problem with IDOC? IDOC, it's a well-known, so it's part of the most part of culture of the companies. So, you know, everyone already use it, and, you know, it's easy to be implemented. But IDOCs are huge, right? So have billions of fields, and, you know, if you're not really taking care, or if you don't have a really strategy, this can start to bring like performance issues, mainly if you are working with change pointers. So I worked in companies in the past that I had like I don't know, 35, 50 change pointers for one same business object, triggering huge IDOCs, and then we started to have problems with performance. About API, is API the future only? No, it's not only, but for sure it's one pattern that we try to advise for projects. But we have, you know, we still have a proxy HTTPS, we can have a REST, we can have data communications. So there are a lot of protocols that can be used, that can be also standard, has IDOCs, but can offer, you know, better performance. Hope that I answer your question, my friend. It's really secure to integrate S/4HANA via API without ES or CPI? Good question, right? So security point of view. So in terms of security layer, right? So you have your API management, communicate with your S/4HANA via reverse proxy, so you can ensure that those platforms are in different landscape layers, right? So will be hard to have this access, and then you can expose your API management, or you can even have another reverse proxy, the SAP inclusive. If I'm not completely wrong, the SAP also offered this option to have some type of reverse proxy between the API management and the end consumers. So, doesn't matter if you use the ES or the CPI, just remember, right? So if you means ES has the integration suite, so the API management, it's inside of the integration suite. So if you're using the API management, that means that you are using the integration suite, but you can use without any problem the API management without any CPI. In case of real-time replication to multiple applications, how to ensure data consistency? Some applications could downtime of this replication. Good point, right? So this is also something that needs to be part of your solution blueprint, how to handle, for example, circuit breaks, right? So what's happened if one of those instances is down, or if the global instance, it's down, how to ensure. There are many mechanisms, there are many patterns, not only focus on the SAP, but you find some of those patterns inside of the domain drive book, where you can have a circuit break check, right? So you can analyze if your applications are online and able to receive, and if it's down, you can have queues to organize your topics. You can have a reprocessing of those messages manually or automatically, but for sure this need to be part of your solution blueprint to ensure that you are not losing messages. Hi, Lucas. Don't you know if SAP plan to handle customizing once and on? Yes, good point, right? So yes, right? So to tell the truth, today we already have a possibility to customize some events. So today the SAP already offer a huge list of chains of standard events. You can customize some of those events, but I think your question is more related to a specific part of change, right? So how to identify that only the banking data has been changed. And yes, as I know, the SAP having the roadmap this functionality to not only trigger events, but also to disseminate what has been changed, right? And then, you can identify, or your subscribed can apply to only receive events that really make sense for their systems. Good question, really good question. And I already faced it every time that I try to implement event mesh. I face the same challenge, the same question. So I hope that the SAP will deliver this as fast they can. Event driver could handle millions of events daily if. Good question, right? So in terms, if you're asking like an event driving architecture, in theory, right? So event driving can also handle data and process integration, right? So always depend of the event broker or how robust it's your event broker to handle data integration, right? So if you handle million of event dailies, if the business demand, yes, can be handled, but I strongly suggest to run a POC, right? So this is what I always suggest, independently of the solution that you're adopting, to, run a POC, a performance test, to see, if your scope it's millions, then, run hundreds of millions for, you know, a couple of days or weeks to be sure that your event broker can hold that. What is the difference between data replication and data orchestration? This is a philosophic discussion, right? So we can spend here many hours discussion on that. Basically, data replication, you pick up the data from one side and put to another side. In data orchestration, you need to orchestrate your data. So depending of some parameters, you need to have a data cleaning, you need to orchestrate the distribution of this data across multiple systems. It's a tricky concept. I will not say complex, but it's a tricky concept that, you know, you need to revisit it in your company to see what makes sense to you. And we also have a huge library that explains the details, all those differences. As the record will be available, thank you, right? So it's always amazing when we have you. Are iDocs built on RFCs? Good question, right? So good question. So iDoc will be the message type, and the RFC can be the output of this message, right? So it's not like iDocs are built on RFCs, but RFCs can be, you know, the communication channel for iDocs. So when an iDoc need to go out, usually you need to create a RFC to expose this data. And then, you know, we suggest to have a middleware, you know, between your SAP system and the receiver system, you know, to orchestrate that. So the problem is when we establish directly RFC connections between systems, mainly when we talk about iDocs that, you know, have a huge structures and huge libraries, you know, that can bring some performance, error handling, and all of that. Again, I hope that I answer your question. We have other two questions, so it should be, so it's only about the names. Okay, nice. What are the future planning for SAP? What can we expect new in the future, right? So this is a really nice question, right? So basically here we are talking about roadmap, right? So the SAP have a strong website where, you know, we can have the roadmap for different solutions. So in terms of integration suite, at least now, you know, the SAP is really bringing a robust roadmap where we can exactly follow all the steps that, you know, are being published and, you know, what will come in the next months. So at least I always use this, you know, to support my projects, you know, to understand. I will paste this link on the chat, or I will reply here. And then, you know, you can check everything that it's coming from SAP from the next quarters, and usually they are really precise. Thank you, Lucas. Tons of you. These sessions looking for the API and Nero Edge beta. Amazing, right? So let's already plan it, you know, because I'm also really interested. I'm trying to be in contact with SAP to have the first visions of this Nero Edge, because it will be a big game change. Guys, I think we covered the most part of the topics, right? So the other, it's only about the winners, right? So as soon this meeting ends, I will pick up those address and I will send the book to you. Will be an online version to don't have any problems with, you know, logistic. And I hope that you enjoy those 3 sessions, right? So for me, it was a huge pleasure. I really expect that, you know, we can have more more sessions like this in a short future. Because of this, it's so important that you bring topics to us, that, you know, everyone can see that we want to keep together to keep this topic really, really live. Thank you again.
Yeah, thanks a lot to our speaker for an interesting speech. As already mentioned, today's webinar recording will be posted on our video portal as well as on our YouTube channel. The links to the recordings will be sent separately. Colleagues, thank you very much again for your participation and have a nice day.
Thank you again. Bye.